Gather round, everyone. This is the SoapBox. This cannot keep happening to us time and time again. There's got to be a change in boxing. Boxing fans, we need to make that change. We can't depend on the men that sit behind the desk and push the pin all day. You can't call us a black guy in boxing. There's too many black guys. You're going to have to call us a broken nose or even a broken rib.
You're listening to Leading in the Ring with your hosts Dave Fuentes, Gabriel Montoya, and Ernesto Gavion. Every Thursday night at 5 o'clock Pacific Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. The home of the Fight Fest.
The only thing I have about this is the whole thing. I don't know what you guys feel, but they're talking about December 11th, the same date as Showtime's Bantamweight tournament. What is this whole competing with each other? You know?
I blame Golden Boy a little bit.
I do too.
I blame him. It's one of those things where it's like they're counter-programming one of their key fighters. Abner Mares has been their fighter since they signed with him. Since he signed with them, you know, you've groomed him. You endured his appendectomy, you endured his detached retina, you endured the managerial change, and what do you do when his coming out party comes on? You match another star on a different network to run approximately the same time because it's going to be in Mexico and it's going to be in Las Vegas, and the time difference isn't going to be that drastic to where you can switch over to one fight after you've done viewing the other one. Had it been in the UK, it might have been a different story. But it's not. It's in Vegas. I also wanted to say that's a horrible venue. It's a horrible location for this fight. It makes absolute no sense.
No sense.
At all. And you know, I mean, honestly, you put it in where Amir Khan's going to sell. You know, you put it in the UK. It should have been in the UK. You know, I don't get Golden Boy on this one. I'm scratching my head. You know, if anything, if you wanted to counter program, you should have counter programmed your own pay-per-view, crappy pay-per-view, Hopkins Pascal.
Look, the thing is this, is you keep hearing this term, boxing is a business. And I understand that, you know, and I understand that the casino probably dished out the money to cover this event, you know, which is great. But you're trying to bring boxing back into the mainstream. And having it in Vegas where what fans does he really have, like you just mentioned right now? You know, Ernesto, what fans does he really have that's going to draw a bunch of people to Vegas to want to sit there and pay this amount of I mean, the tickets will probably be reasonable, but you're thinking Vegas hotel, there's no cheap hotels out there. You know, you got to fly out there. To me, it's a hassle for a fight that really, honestly, have it in California somewhere. You know what I mean? Take it back to New York.
You know what's horrible about this is that, you know, you're right. You know, for the boxing media, when you do these types of trips, unless you're getting comped by the promoters, and the only people who get comped by promoters are those those big, overblown, overfloated, and overeated writers, and I say that in quotations. You know, it costs money to do these things, and to have it in a venue where it's not going to draw, to have it in a venue where it's going to be empty, because I think they're having it in Mandalay, and I doubt it does more than 6,000 or 7,000 people. I really do. I mean,
I doubt it even breaks the 5,000. To tell you the truth, 3,000.
Has no audience. I mean, Maidana has no audience. Amir Khan has a small, kind of burgeoning audience, but we're not giving him enough time to grow. I really just scratch my head at the decision Golden Boy made. I mean, it makes no sense at all.
You look at these American promoters, and you know, we talk a lot about how the sport is not dying, but it's kind of sick. But really, what we're talking about is kind of the American promoters, and you really look at it. You know, you've got on that night, you know, in Mexico, you got Yanni Perez, Agneco, Victor Chinian versus Abner Mares, which, you know, the Mexicans will go see that fight because they like the little guys and they know a good fight when they see them, much less two. And these are two fights that are like fight of the years. You know, it's an amazing card. Then you've got Amir Khan, Marcos Maidana, which could be a good fight if Maidana can get to the chin. I don't think he can. Same night. But these venues don't fit these fighters. You know, I mean, you can kind of say, hey, Mexico, they're going to come. But here is the difference. In Germany, that same night, Vladimir Klitschko is going to be fighting. He wants to fight, but he is going to be fighting in Germany, where he's going to have 50,000 people, no matter who shows up. I mean, I might even fight the guy, and a bunch of people will show up. Right. Because they love that guy, and that promoter knows how to promote, knows to take his fighter to the venue that he's built for 10 years with this guy, and they're going to fill it up. Meanwhile, these American guys, it's like they went to the Al Haymon School of Developing Fighters, in draws, which is, you put them all over the place, and you never quite develop them. I mean, why take Amir Khan to New York and kind of build that venue and then not go back? Yep. Take him back to New York. He was successful there. Go on back. I know Paulie probably brought some of that audience, but there was a lot of people that are dying for a big fight in Vegas. But, the bottom line is that there's not that kind of casino fee, and that Madison Square Garden probably can't afford to do big fights all the time like this. And so here you go. Let's just put it in Vegas, and we'll get that big casino fee. HBO will probably show it, and Golden Boy's happy. Meanwhile, they're going to have to be paper in the house because neither of these guys are a draw in Vegas. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They're going to have to stack that undercard, and I just don't know how they do that.
Plus, I also think that, from what I understand, Golden Boy's got to put X number of dates in Las Vegas, because they are a partner with the MGM. So maybe there is pressure from them to wrap up the second half of the year by putting stuff in there, even if it doesn't belong. Still doesn't make it any better, but, I do understand, they probably do have some type of quantity agreement with MGM Holdings.
Because we do spend a lot of time on the negative, and the positive here is on December 12th we're going to have Vladimir Klitschko fighting, hopefully against a good opponent, probably not. We've got, the Perez, Agbeko, Darchinyan, Maris card kicking off that tournament. And we got our Amir Khan actually taking on a tough opponent that we all wanted to see against Marcos Maidana. It's going to be a great night for boxing.
No, it's absolutely. Look, we're going to get our fix. We're going to get our fix out of as a hardcore fight fan. But what we're focusing on is this. This is the thing, man. And I don't know where a lot of these American promoters went to business school to, but it looks like they're failing at it. Look, business 101 is you want return customers, not one-time customers. Yep. When you want a running business, when you want a business that's going to function, you want to have the customer come back repeatedly. You want to have a lifetime customer, not a one-time customer. And to me, these promoters are looking for one-time customers. They're looking to have a customer come and buy something and literally feel raped and dirty about buying it and walking away. That's exactly what they're doing. I mean, they need to get their head out of their asses. They need to figure out, look, this is what we're doing wrong. Let's look at history. And that's what I said. That's why we have history there for. That's why United States right now is in so much shit in the economy because of the fact that we're not looking at history. We're being big-headed and we're being idiots by not looking at what's in front of us. There's been a blueprint. Roll it out. Look at it. The UK are doing great. Look, Germany's doing fantastic when they hold an event. Why can't the United States do that?
It's the current climate in U.S. boxing, in American promoting. That this dates back to the 90s when Dan Goossen first started going to casinos with Michael Nunn. He's one of the first guys, I believe, to have a fighter get an exclusive contract through the casinos, and made a huge, a lot of money for Michael Nunn. And that's kind of, I think it began a little bit before
but you just said it right now. Look, that was back in the times when they barely looked at it and they said, listen, this worked and let's keep doing it. But when you see the numbers dying, when you see the numbers keep completely dying and dying and dying, you got to rethink the game again. You got to say, you know what, let me go back and rethink this and take it back to the original way of doing it, the original way of building fighters, the original way of getting fans to walk through the doors.
You look at it from this standpoint that if they keep giving you millions of dollars to put on these shows and MGM or Mandalay don't care if you sell all the seats or if this is really fight fan friendly in terms of travel, but they can get a certain amount of people to come out for the fight and generate some money and get some of their their wins back, they're going to keep doing it. And what's worse about this is that this is going to be regular HBO probably. This is going to be regular TV, for nowadays standards. So we can't even, the fight fans can't even just say, well, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to buy the pay-per-view like they could do this weekend or, the previous cards that they weren't happy with, or future cards. With this one, it's like, well, if you pay for HBO, this is the fight you get, and it's a good fight. But yeah, I mean, they're getting the site fee from, the money from HBO, money from the casino to put this fight on. I mean, why would they stop? That's the thing. I mean, and they're not really, any of these promoters, interested in the sport of boxing. I'm amazed that all these good fights actually happened, on one night. Because most of these guys don't really, in my opinion, care about the sport of boxing and growing it as a business. They care about Golden Boy Promotions or Top Rank Promotions or Gary Shaw, etc., and growing their own businesses. That's really all they care about.
Look, to me, the damaging part of boxing and boxing to me, and the thing that really gets underneath my skin is if you look at times of and let's be honest, boxing has never had its real up rise where it's run smoothly. There's always something in boxing. Back in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, you had particular contenders never get a shot at the champion. They had over 100 fights and they never got that title shot because it was the mafia or politics were making sure they maneuvered it to make sure they kept that fighter winning and packing the house in. Then you had particular people having fighters take a fall. This is something that's been happening in our sport for years, but it's evolved with the time, and that's exactly what it looks like. It's evolved into something a little bit different, where now you have management crews and you have promoters, okay, doing almost the exact same thing. They're almost mirroring what was happening back in the 50s and 60s. When you had Joe Louis, who was a young contender, gonna fight the Cinderella Man, and they bring him a contract and say, hey, listen, we'll let you fight, but you have to sign on this here saying that all the other fights when you become champion, we get a percentage on. It's almost the same thing if you look at what the promoters and you just mentioned Al Heyman, and HBO, they're almost doing the same thing. They're keeping their house fighters safe. And if you want to fight them, you're basically going to have to sign several deals. I mean, look what happened with HBO and Golden Boy. I don't want to knock on them too much, but the fact of the matter is that I've had people, hitting me up, and I had a great conversation with Stand and Fight about this when, some people were like, hey, why is Moran Mosley being on pay-per-view? Well, because Golden Boy signed them both these guys to a major deal. So they got to make sure they deliver. And HBO signed Golden Boy for an X amount of dates, so they got to make sure they deliver. So they basically signed, the promoter, the network, and the fighters have signed all their names with blood. But nobody's learning from it. Nobody's learning from it.
Well, this is the thing, too, with Golden Boy. It's almost like judging, where UFC is going to be in 20 years, because Golden Boy and UFC are very young companies. And, Golden Boy enjoyed a lot of success early on, probably because HBO created them and wanted them to be successful, and gave them all those dates and the output deals that other promoters never got, And so they had all that success up front, but they've had to learn while everybody's watching. And this is not an easy business. Developing a fighter is not easy. Having a young matchmaker like Eric Gomez doesn't really help your cause when he's got to learn on the job how to develop a champion. And as Bruce Trampler's shown, Brad Goodman, Bob Goodman, these legendary matchmakers, Don Shargan is another one. These guys know how to develop fighters over a period of time. And there's a learning curve here for Golden Boy. And they've had that high end. And, early on they had all these guys jumping ship to them, all these free agents. They ended up with Floyd Mayweather at one point. They had it really good. But now you're seeing who they really are. I mean, look at how hard they're promoting the fights this weekend. They're not the best fights in the world. Some of them are pretty good matches.
But look, Gabriel, you need teachers, though. See, and that's the thing also. If you look at, I hear what you're saying. Yes, they're very new to as a promoter-wise, okay? They're babies. They're barely learn how to pick themselves up and walk. But you got to have some type of guidance, and it even goes back to the trainers now. If you look at the trainers, how they're developing their fighters, none of them are really, honestly, we're not having any amateur programs to really, honestly, get them groomed to become superstars. We're looking at fighters and pushing them to become superstars before they even learn how to jab. We're not learning from our mistakes. We're not looking at history saying, look, Bruce Trampler is a great matchmaker, but he obviously had to learn from somebody to make sure he did the job correctly. Everybody is in a rush at this period of time, in this technology and in this world that we live in. We are in a rush. We need to slow down, step back and really look at what we're doing.